Let's study affricates. There are two affricate consonants in English, ch and j. If we provide the phonetic features of ch, we say that it's voiceless, fortis, oral, palato-alveolar, and of course it's an affricate. And j is voiced, linear, palato-alveolar. When we describe ch and j as voiceless and voiced, respectively, we refer to the state of the glottis. In ch, the vocal cords don't vibrate, while in j they do vibrate. And because they don't vibrate in ch, we say it's fortis, because we need more muscular effort in its production as we don't have the support of the vocal cords, while in j, because the vocal cords vibrate, it's linear. We don't need so much muscular effort in its production. Both are oral because they resonate in the mouth or oral cavity. Why? Because in their production, the velum or soft palate is raised, so it blocks the entrance to the nose, and the sounds resonate in the mouth. So, because the nasal resonator is shut off, the sounds are oral. And they are palato-alveolar. Why? Because the tip and blade of the tongue articulate with the alveolar ridge, and at the same time there's a raising of the front of the tongue towards the hard palate. We'll watch some animations in a minute. Why do we refer to them as affricates? Because they are produced by a stricture of complete oral closure. Ch, j. We can perceive that the articulators form a stricture of complete closure, but the air is released with friction. We say that affricates are produced in 3 stages. The closing stage, during which the articulating organs move together to form the obstruction. In this case, as we can see in this figure, the tip and blade of the tongue move towards the alveolar ridge, and they form the obstruction. There's a stricture of complete closure there. And the hold, a compression stage, during which lung action compresses the air behind the closure. We know that the air coming from the lungs is compressed here. It's kept behind the closure. This stage may or may not be accompanied by voice. This slide was provided by Professor Beverly Collins when he gave his talk at the summer course in English phonetics in 2012 at University College London. If you pay attention to this figure, you can see the articulation of, in this case, ch, because we have a minus indicating that there is no vibration of the vocal cords. So there is complete closure there between the tip and blade of the tongue and the alveolar ridge, which form a stricture of complete closure. Also, at the same time, we see that the front of the tongue is raised towards the hard palate. So this is a feature of the affricates. The tip and blade of the tongue articulate with the alveolar ridge, and at the same time, the front of the tongue goes in the direction of the hard palate. And the release stage. The separation of the organs is slow compared to that of a plosive, so friction is a characteristic second element of this sound, actually of both sounds, ch, j. So as you can see, when the air goes out, the separation of the organs is slow, so the air goes out with friction. So affricates and plosives differ in the last stage, in the release stage, because plosives are released with explosion, because the organs separate abruptly, while affricates are released with friction because the organs separate more slowly. As you can see in this figure, the air, you have to imagine the air going out with friction. And please pay attention to the shape of the lips. Ch, j. If you pay attention to the shape of your lips, they assume the shape of a trumpet. The lips are trumpet shaped. Let's analyze affricates from the phonological point of view. That is to say, let's analyze their distribution. Well, they occur in all positions except in initial cluster. So they have restricted occurrence to initial position, medial position, final position, and final cluster. That means that they can only occur in these positions, but not in initial cluster. Now, let's think about affricates in Spanish. Are there any affricate sounds in Spanish? Well, there are. One of them is ch, as in chancho, poncho. It's a phoneme. And j. Yeah, we do have a sound j in Spanish, but it's not a phoneme. It's an allophone. It's a variant of the phoneme y. The phoneme, the abstract entity is y, which is realized in different ways. One of these ways is j. Let's analyze in what ways the phoneme in Spanish y can be realized. It can be realized as the fricative, as the palatal fricative y, as in la lluvia vivo en Cuyo. That's the way many people from Cuyo speak. Sh. Porteños speak like that. La lluvia vive en Cuyo. J. La lluvia vivo en Cuyo. Or j, especially when it's preceded by nasal, con lluvia, cónyuge, or in absolute initial position. ¿Quién quiere irse? Yo, right? So, we do have an affricate sound in Spanish, j, but it's an allophone, not a phoneme. An allophone of the fricative, of the palatal fricative, y. Now let's move on to fricative consonants. Fricatives are the most numerous phonemes in English. They are 9. F, v, th, th, s, z, sh, j, h. Let's provide the phonetic features of fricatives. Well, we have to pay attention to the state of the glottis, breath force, resonance. That is to say, we have to describe the state of the glottis, and we say that f is voiceless and v is voiced, th is voiceless and th is voiced, s is voiceless and z is voiced, sh voiceless, j voiced, and h is voiceless. So they all have a voiced counterpart except h, which is voiceless, and it doesn't have a voiced counterpart. We also have to describe the place of articulation. That is to say, we have to analyze where the stricture occurs, at what point in the mouth the organs approximate. We have to describe their point or place of articulation. And then we have to describe the manner of articulation, that is to say, how the fricatives are produced. That is the manner of articulation. And they are called fricatives because they are produced by a stricture of close approximation. That is to say, they are produced when an active articulator approximates a passive one, and the air forces its way out, making a noise called friction. Let's start with f, v. They are labiodental. Why? Because the lower lip, let's have a look at this figure, the lower lip and upper teeth approximate to produce f and v. Let's watch this animation. So you can see how the lower lip articulates with the upper teeth and how the air goes out with friction. All right. Let's move on to the next pair, th and th. They are dental. Why? Because the tip of the tongue, let's have a look at this figure, approximates the upper teeth. Th, th. Let's watch the animation. All right, this is the animation for th, th, th. There is friction when you produce it. Now, s, z. They are alveolar because the tip and blade of the tongue articulate with the alveolar ridge. Let's watch the animation here. Again. Right. Z, z. Remember, these animations have been taken from the chart of the International Phonetic Association, where you can click on the sounds and you can get an animation or a magnetic resonance image. Sh, zh. They are palato-alveolar. As you can see, they are articulated just like ch and j, because ch and j are palato-alveolar too. But they are different in the manner of articulation. Why? Because ch and j are affricates, and first there's a structure of complete closure, while in sh and zh there's no structure of complete closure. The articulators approximate, but there's no contact. So the tip and blade of the tongue approximate the alveolar ridge, and at the same time the front of the tongue is raised towards the hard palate. Sh, zh. And note the trumpet-shaped lip rounding there. So your lips are kind of rounded, sh, zh, and they assume the shape of a trumpet. Sh, zh. Fricatives with friction. There's no complete closure there. There's a narrowing, so the air goes out with friction. While in ch, j, first there is a complete closure. Ch, j, and these are sh, zh. And then we have h, which is glottal. Why? Because it's articulated at the glottis. The vocal cords form the structure. They approximate to such an extent that there is friction, but no vibration. Let's review the phonetic features of fricatives. Well, f is voiceless, fortis, labiodental, v, voiced, linis, labiodental, and they are fricatives, of course. Th and th is voiceless, fortis, dental, and th is voiced, linis, and dental. S, voiceless, fortis, alveolar, and z, voiced, linis, alveolar. Sh, voiceless, fortis, palato-alveolar, and zh, voiced, linis, palato-alveolar. So you see they all have their voiced counterparts, but in h, there is no voiced counterpart. It's voiceless. And because it doesn't have a voiced counterpart, we don't need to say it's linis. It's a voiceless glottal fricative.